Hi there, everybody. The purpose of this video is to get you started using Canopy. If you're already familiar with Python, then you're not going to learn anything new here. But if you've never used the Canopy environment before, or if you aren't familiar with IPython notebooks, this will help get you going. I'm demoing this on Mac OS X, but I imagine it should work the same on Windows or Linux. When you open Canopy, the first thing you're confronted with is the Welcome window. Here we'll go to the editor to start a new document. In the bottom here is a Python interpreter window. We're not going to use that today, so we'll close it, but you can always bring it back if you want. For now, we're going to be working with IPython notebooks, so we'll go up here and start a new one. In IPython notebooks, we work with these different cells, and they come in different flavors. Here we're going to start with a Markdown cell. There is a long and rich tradition of using the phrase "Hello World" to start learning any new programming language, so that's what we're going to do here. So there we entered "Hello World" in a Markdown cell and ran it, and you could see it displayed, the phrase "Hello World." Let's see what happens if we do the same thing in a code cell. Okay, that didn't work out too well. Python didn't like that, and it gave us a bunch of error message garbage. So we're going to have to do something to fix this up a little bit. So instead, let's add the print command first before the phrase "Hello World" and put some quotation marks around it and see if that works any better. And indeed, Python likes this much better. It obediently prints "Hello World" for us without any problems. So there you can see one of the basic differences here. In the Markdown cells, you can really just write any text that you want, but in the code cells, obviously, you have to write things in the appropriate Python syntax. Okay, so code, that seems pretty obvious, but what is Markdown anyway? Well, that's a longer story that we don't really have time for here, but let me just demonstrate a few of the very basic features of using Markdown syntax in the Markdown cells. By using the relatively simple Markdown syntax, we can use just a few symbols and add some formatting to our text. If you want to learn more about Markdown syntax, there are lots of good resources out there, so just take a look around on the web. You'll find everything you need. And hey, presto, our text is nicely formatted. So you can see here with just a hashtag and a few dashes, we get nice headings and bullet points. Pretty cool. So we've seen what hashtags do in the Markdown cells. What about in the code cells? Well, when you use a hashtag at the beginning of some text in a code cell, it serves a completely different function than it does in the Markdown cells. In the Markdown cells, it formats the text after the hashtag as a heading, but in a code cell, as you can see, when we run something that has a hashtag in front of it, absolutely nothing happens. So what is the point of having a character that causes absolutely nothing to happen? Well, as all of you who have already tried some programming know, it can be very useful. We can use these for comments in our code. So sometimes it's useful to be able to write things into the code that don't actually do anything, but which we can use to remind ourselves later of what it was that our code was supposed to be doing, why we used a particular bit of syntax, and we can also remind ourselves maybe of things that we want to add to our code later on. So there can be lots of good reasons to have the ability to write something in the code that is not actually interpreted as code. So now we have a working, albeit very, very simple, bit of Python script. And we can confirm this by going through and running all the cells one by one. And they seem to do just what we want. So if you have downloaded Canopy, but you weren't quite sure how to get started, I hope this is enough to get you going. And in the next video, we'll go into things in a little bit more depth.